So we're going to be looking at the Saratoga Late Pick 5, which comprises races 8 through 12 on Saturday's card, July 20th. And the first leg is the eighth race. It's an optional claimer for 62,500 N2X non-winners of 3 lifetime, run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a pretty interesting field. If we take it, it's not overly dominated by any early pace type of runners. Federal Judge probably is the one that would be likely to take the lead. He's the most prone to it, though he can rate. So it's not a race that necessarily contains a true front runner. This is a horse who's coming off a very long layoff, who did show a lot of promise early on, to the point where he ran into Woody Stevens and didn't do bad. He was on the lead and faded a little late, probably a little too much for him that early in his career. But the biggest troubling thing, of course, is the fact that he's been on the bench for quite some time. However, Brad Cox has control of him, and he's pretty good with long layoffs. So I think Federal Judge makes a pretty good amount of sense here, especially when you consider there's not a lot of horses who want necessarily the lead. So I think Federal Judge makes sense here. Looking at the rest of the field, full screen is kind of troubling to me, and I'm going to let this one beat me, but he is trained by Mark Casse, whose barn is pretty live so far at Saratoga, but this one hasn't won in over 2 years, and it just seems like the last race didn't show me a whole lot, and it seems to be probably a little outclassed here, and I just don't like his chances. So just to give you an idea of the pace scenario. Now, Arrow Smash, I think, makes the most sense to me. This is a horse who has good back class, trained by Phil Bauer. Phil Bauer and Rigney Racing point to this meet and have done very well over the last couple of years. This is a horse who definitely is a fit. 7 furlongs is a distance that he likes. Should be sitting just off the leader, whoever it might be, and I think is poised to run a big one. So I really like Arrow Smash in this spot. A couple to consider for underneath. Excuse me. Midnight Trouble looks like a horse who's ready to run a good race, although a top end is a little probably a little wanting there, but I think is one that looks like is ready to run a solid race, and so we're going to throw in the mix, just sitting off the leaders, and plus a couple others to consider here, like Costa Terra and Gunnet. Gunnet's got second-itis, and Costa Terra is cutting way back from the usual two-turn races that he runs, and I think Linda Rice is just trying to sharpen him up a little bit. So to me, Midnight Trouble has more of a purpose to run a good race here, and I think that's what at 10 to 1 you're getting good value too. Deer District has run well at Saratoga in the past, including a good second in the Amsterdam, trained by Dale Romans, bringing this one up back to what I consider to be a wheelhouse surface and distance, back on dirt and back at one turn, and I think that meets Deer District right between the eyes. Will have to do a little better than he has been doing, but I think it's entirely possible. Dale Romans comes up to Saratoga every year, and this one looks like a logical, probably more suited for under those. So Arrow Smash would be my pick in this race, but I think Federal Judge is certainly one worth considering as well. Leg 2 is the 9th race. It's an optional claimer at 80,000, run at 1.125 on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. And this is an interesting race. It's a tough one. You really don't have any confirmed speed in this race, so the shape is rather interesting. Particularly in New York, where they don't tend to run pretty quick on the front end. I think it's the later runners are probably up against it a little bit here. But you take a look, like Pioneering Spirit, if he could recapture the form he had at Saratoga last year, then I think he would be a contender here. But he just ran in a 2 mile race and kind of a dull effort, and so he's sort of a tough read as to which what kind of run we're going to get out of him. Now, he is capable of getting on the lead and has done so in the past, and that would probably be a better place to be. Just not sure about the turn of foot. I mean, cutting back is certainly a good thing, I think, but just on the whole this year, the form really hasn't been terribly great. And Linda Rice's barn, by her own admission, isn't that strong this year. So it's a tough call, but at 10-1, I'll throw Pioneering in the Nile in the Pioneering Spirit in the mix. Major Dude to me has just been a complete underachiever, and he seems to be picking up at 4 years old where he did at 3. Ran in an optional claimer, granted. Was first off the bench after quite a while, and certainly Todd Pletcher will be pointing this horse to other races, but he got a second in a race he probably should have won, and that seems to be the pattern with Major Dude. Give him a little bit of a pass since he was coming off the bench, but this is a horse that I just wonder how much better or how much progression he's made. I'm going to throw him in the mix here, but I tend to like his stablemate Steady On better. Steady On is a horse that at 3 showed steady improvement and throughout the course of his career, and came off the bench after quite some time off, and I thought ran a pretty good effort after a long layoff, and certainly looks, based upon the MO of this horse in the past, has the look of one that will move forward. In particular, the fact that there isn't a confirmed front runner in this race, and that I think this race is going to be run up on the in the early stages and on the front end. I think Steady On makes a lot of sense here at 5-1. Balloony is, you do have the other Chad Brown in here. You've got a couple within the winner is, but of the two, I think Balloony makes a little more sense. This horse seems to be most effective at closing into races that don't have a whole lot of pace, and I don't think you're going to get a lot here. And it may speak a little bit to the class of this horse. I'm not sure this is a top flight Chad Brown horse. Seems more of a JV type, but having a light or having a soft pace scenario would be more favorable to Balloony, and so I think you can include in the mix. And then finally, just going to throw a Tone in there because of all these horses, he does have a pattern of being third off the layoff. Had a pretty good effort last time in an optional claimer, and the added distance is probably well suited for him, the extra panel. So we'll throw a Tone in the mix. You never know what to do with this horse. He's awful hard to trust, and you could say the same for quite a few in here. So I think this is definitely a spread race, but this might be the type of race that a Tone can win. He'll be more forwardly placed. This horse is very handy, and tactically he doesn't have to be at the rear, so I think he'll be up closer to it. And then it'll just be a question of if he's good enough. So this is definitely a race that is really hard to decipher, and it's a corker for the second leg of the sequence. Leg 3 is the 10th race, the Lake George Stakes. It's a Grade 3 run at a mile on the inner turf for 3-year-old fillies. And we'll take a look at this field, and I don't have a lot of insight on this one. I think it's oversubscribed, and that's it. Basically reviewing each one of these contenders, she looks to me like clearly the best one. The Wild Applause last time, granted, she did have pace to run to, and was able to get to the winner, or the leader. But I think that's kind of it. Is it showed just a really big kick, had to come from the clouds to do it, and probably not going to have that type of pace in this type of scenario. I wouldn't expect it. You know, the New York turf riders don't generally like to gun it on the front end. But I just think this one is the has the most upside coming in off the layoff to do that, and should move forward second off the layoff for Chad Brown. And I just think she's the best horse, and that's what it comes down to. A lot of the others seem to have issues to me, particularly that last stakes race they all came out of. The name escapes me. I apologize, but Viva Viv, Sweet Rebecca, uh, Gavia. That to me was a pretty disappointing race. I thought. I know Seghetto came back and Seghetto came back and ran well, and that does validate it to a degree. But really, there were so many horses in there that had every chance to win it, and none of them could. Gavea was at big odds, and was right up on the leaders and took command when the overwhelming favorite, Way to Be Marie, faded back. But she couldn't keep onward. But okay, give her a break on that. But she was going for big odds for a reason, and I didn't see necessarily where there's a big potential to make that move forward that would be necessary to win this. The same can be said for Viva Veuve, another one that had every chance to win that race and just wasn't fast enough in the stretch. Sweet Rebecca was a pretty big disappointment in that race as well. And so I think there's a lot of horses coming into this race with something to prove. And I think they've had ample time to take a move forward. And a lot of them don't look like necessarily they're going to. Now, of the horses in the race, I think Pounce is the one that is a suitable alternative, mainly because she likes to run up near the lead, has tactical speed, doesn't need the lead, and also has the back class to demonstrate that I think she's got ability and can rebound from her okay third last time. So as an alternative to oversubscribed, I think Pounce would make a lot of sense. Now, Gala Brand, to me, is a horse that I don't know how much better that she's getting. Now, she came out of that Wild Applause with oversubscribed, and yes, maybe she had some issues at the gate, but she also is a late runner. And so she had plenty of time to recover from that and was not able to put forth the same type of kick that oversubscribed did to come out on top. And I think that, yes, she was coming off a layoff for Bill Mott, and that's true, and he does point to races. But this horse last year I thought was a little was disappointing. I thought was overrated as a 2-year-old, and I'm going to have to see a race out of her. Now at 12-1, that is nice value, and if you want to throw her in the mix, I can understand it. But I haven't seen enough yet to tell me that she has necessarily ready to progress and take another step forward. So in this race, to me, by default, really no other reason. I think oversubscribed is the one to beat here, with an alternative being Pounce. And yet the other ones there were hair on so many of the other ones that I thought these were the two with the least amount, and oversubscribed is the one of all the group that I think is poised to run a big race and move forward again. So we're going to single oversubscribed. Leg 4 is the 11th race. It's the Coaching Club American Oaks, a Grade 1 run at 1 1/8 for the 3-year-old fillies. And this is going to be a short discussion. It's Thorpedo Anna for me. I'm tired of trying to beat her. She's proven to me that 2 consecutive times at 1 1/8 is not a problem, and distances aren't really an issue for her. She's just better than the rest of these. In particular, having a small field, I think she's going to be able to dictate things. Will likely get right on the engine, right on the lead by default, and then just walk home. I think she's that good. Putting Johnny Velasquez on Leslie's Rose does give me the thought that perhaps they will try to challenge, but I think that really works right into Thorpedo Anna's wheelhouse. She doesn't need a lead; she can rate, and if I think that takes Leslie's Rose out of her game, which is stalking in from off the pace. Uh, Intricate to me hasn't gotten any better. He was, she was a really nice 2-year-old, and I liked her a lot. But this year really hasn't. She doesn't show any type of progression, and she's still a nice horse. But I think she'd have to improve immeasurably to take down Thorpedo Anna. So Intricate to me doesn't fit the bill. Barbertina certainly isn't, or just isn't good enough. I think that's the bottom line to it. She'd have to make a quantum leap to be competitive in this race, and I don't think it's going to come even with the trainer change to George Weaver, who's a nice trainer, certainly. But if Brad Cox couldn't get her there, then I don't see George Weaver doing it either. Not right now, anyway. Which leaves us with Candide. Now, there were a couple of encouraging things I saw from Candide in her last race. Number one, she was rating closer to the pace, and when you start seeing that from a horse who in particular at 2 was running from off the pace or towards the rear, and now you see them getting a little more engaged, getting closer to it, and still being effective, that's the mark of a horse who's getting better. This is a horse who has run comparable figures to a Thorpedo Anna as well. The other thing I like to see about her last race was that they finally solved that left lead issue, and the Candide changed leads and won impressively. Now, granted, it was a 4-horse field, so not much different than you have here. The biggest problem to me for Candide, and this is a horse I've always liked, incidentally, is that while she's running closer to the pace, she's not going to be right up on top of it. That's not the way she runs. And I think she would have to be to give Thorpedo Anna, or, to have any chance to beat Thorpedo Anna. And which means you're likely going to get in a duel, and now you're out of your wheelhouse. So everything here points to Thorpedo Anna. I think 1-2 is very kind. It'll probably be more like 1-5, and I think deservedly so. So, to me, this is an easy single in the pick 5 sequence. So we go to leg 5, and this is the 12th race. It's a maiden special weight at 100,000, running a 1.5 miles on the inner turf. So this has 2 laps, excuse me, or 3 turns for 3-year-olds and up. And Chad Brown has a couple in here, no surprise. And from what I saw in watching the race replays for these, factor analysis looks very logical. Just nearly won it last time over. Couldn't quite get to his his stablemate at mile and 3/8. Obviously, the distance isn't a problem. I think this horse is, just makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you have 2, the take your seats, I'm not quite as encouraged by him, but factor analysis fits the bill and should be very competitive here. Now, our Tempest is an interesting horse because, number one, a lot of times these horses, like the last one the factor analysis ran in, are won on the front end at these longer distances. And our Tempest is a front runner, has recently been gelded, and I think it's right within the 60-day window when gelding takes its effect. So this horse should be a little more relaxed on the lead. Hasn't been far away from doing it, and I don't think the distance is going to be an issue. So our Tempest, to me, makes a lot of sense on the front end, and that's who I'm going to pick to win this, is to try to get some value into our sequence. Probably 8-1 will be, we won't get anything quite as close to that. It'll probably be more like, probably be the second choice would be my guess, but our Tempest being on the front end, and the fact that, factor analysis, maybe a little too little too late. The last time, we'll give it a shot. the only couple others, Mike Maker having a horse stretch out on the turf is kind of an automatic use. So four top has to be thrown in the mix. This one looks to be making some progress, and certainly in Maker's care, should be a positive claim. He doesn't claim him without a purpose. So four top, I think, is a logical one to think about. And then the Jackal, aside from having a really nice name for a horse, this is one by Shug McGahee. Again, another trainer who, takes his time with him. But this one has been progressing, and I think is possible to be competitive in this race. It's a lot, there's kind of a gulf to me between our Tempest and Factor Analysis and the rest of them. You might want to throw De La Cruz in there as well, just because he's a horse who runs on the front end, although he seems to have plateaued to me. And in the race with Factor Analysis, couldn't stay with it and started to back up. But it's a little softer field here, perhaps, and maybe De La Cruz can give it a shot. But that's just to spread out if you want. I don't know that De La Cruz, to me, makes a lot of sense to take this one down. So if we look at our late pick 5 ticket, I've spread in legs 2 and 5 as well as leg 1 to a degree. I think we can because we have a double single. I just can't see beating Thorpedo Anna or trying to, so I'm not going to. And then in leg 3, oversubscribed just looks like the best horse. And that's really, it kind of the Lake George, the field looks like it kind of has some sameness to it. And so oversubscribed just looks like she has an edge where a lot of them seem to be in kind of a holding pattern. If you want to throw in Pounce as an alternative, I could certainly see it. But we're going to spread in legs 1, 2, and 5. So it'll be 2, 5, and 7. I wanted to just go with 2 and 7, but looking back at it, Deer District is kind of interesting and for Dale Romans, and cutting back to the dirt to a one-turn race, I think might just meet him between the eyes and might give us a nice price if we can get him in there. So we'll throw in Deer District as well as the 2 and the 7. And then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 5, 9 in leg 2. I think that's a pretty wide open affair. Leg 3 and leg 4, we will single oversubscribed in Thorpedo Anna. And then we're going to spread in the maiden race, but I might suggest making a couple of different tickets. One with using Factor Analysis and Take Your Seats, the coupled entry, singling that so you have 3 singles to end the ticket and then maybe leverage it. And then make a separate ticket with 3, 8, 9, and 10. And I could even see throwing the 10 off there, so maybe just leave it at 3, 8, 9. But the body of our ticket would be $75 on a $1 base. And it is a little chalky, but I think we do have the potential for some prices in the first couple legs. And then maybe if we can get our Tempest home in the last leg, then it turns out to be a fairly nice payday. And then, of course, if we leverage with making an even shorter ticket, there's the good potential for a higher ROI. But I'll leave that up to you. I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. Wish you the best of luck as always, and really looking forward to seeing Thorpedo Anna do her stuff. That's a pretty special filly. So I'll talk to you soon. Best of luck this weekend. Enjoy the spa, and be well.